I think, thank you so much, everyone, for attending the session, and also thank you, Tony, for giving us a little bit insights about the campus program. So I believe, let me introduce our speaker for today, Pratik Roy, who's among our mentors for SheHacks, and he's been supporting us through the different platforms that we've been having. So Pratik earlier supported us during the Hackfest program, and he was one of the speakers. And yeah, I believe we will all learn a lot from him, and looking forward to how we could gear our careers towards building up more on cybersecurity. So welcome, Pratik, and thank you so much for making time to have this session with us. So yeah, you can now take it over. Yes.
Thank you, Eve. A big thanks to all attending. I know it's quite late in the evening for you guys, so thank you very much for accommodating me on this side of the world. It's 7 p.m. for you, so I won't keep you that long. I'll try to be as short and concise as possible. Share with you my learnings over my journey in my career of 23 plus years, right? And don't stand between you and your dinner for the evening, right? If, of course, like I think Eve mentioned as well, Nancy mentioned, I think when Tony mentioned earlier, there are any questions, we can take them right at the end, or if you know, so that we don't break the flow at the moment, so you can even jot them down in the chat window, so we can probably answer them. Just a quick question to you, Eve, Nancy, and Tony. In terms of the attendees today, are they all students from the campus, or are we also having some professionals who are currently working in this group that are attending?
Okay, I think I can take up that one. We have students who have recent graduates as well, and we also have people who are very young in their cybersecurity journey. So yes.
Okay, good. No, it's good to know, so that you can set the stage in terms of how the content or what kind of content we'll be talking about. So it's good to know that these are all young folks who are starting off their first steps into the journey of cybersecurity. Last week I had a call with my former university where I studied. That was 24 years ago. I did my undergrad program in India, and a very nostalgic moment for me to go back to the same university where I studied for 4 years, did my undergrad in engineering and computer science, and then being able to, one, being invited by the faculty, and two, being able to talk to current students who are investing time in computer science and were looking forward to what they should do. So it was, I would say it was a very good learning experience even for me. When I was in campus, unlike you guys, right? We didn't have all this technology around us. The only way for us to look up to information that flowed through was through technical journals that were available in the library, right? Which were far and few. I'm happy where we are today with technology and how it's possible for you guys to, at a click of a button, to read up on stuff, be able to join forums like SheHacks, who are able to produce so many webinars for you with the right kind of folks who are from the field. And I suggest you make the most of it going forward. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you, SheHacks, for having me here. Let me try and share my screen. I know talking through presentations is not something that that's very well done when it comes to a webinar. I only have a couple of slides. So what we'll do is we'll try to talk through them. Okay. So let's see, let's share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen. Okay. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Great. So the topic, I kept it as building your cybersecurity career. It's our first step into that space, right? Now, the agenda for today is just to give you a quick idea of who I am, right? what kind of top roles I see in, not only I see, we see existing in the market today, right? And what should be your mantra as budding graduates, budding career professionals who have just started this journey, or recent or folks who are currently in campus, right? What you should do and what you can do, right? And I think it's fantastic that you have this opportunity with SheHacks to attend these webinars, right? So a quick 5 minute on who I am, right? So from my perspective, I have been working in, let's say, my learnings, right? Let's start from there. So I have been in the industry for around 23 plus years. I have had the opportunity, and I'm very fortunate to have worked in organizations like Microsoft, IBM, VMware, and Oracle in multiple different roles, whether it be sales, in tech, and leadership. So that is my learning in my professional career, right? When I look at my professional philosophy, what do I like to do in my career? What do I like to do within my organizations that I work in? I always look towards building, a high performing team that is, I would say, we get them from different walks of life so that, you can get different thoughts, different ideas, coming into your team. And the whole idea, the motto of the team should be, how do we make others successful? How do you make your team successful, and how do you make yourself successful? So that's the kind of team I always like to build into. From my mantra perspective, I read this quote somewhere and it stuck to me, right? And I think it's very simple. I have used this quote a couple of times, even at the Hackfest that Eve was talking about. I did mention this mantra. I think it's been there with me for the last 3 to 4 years now. I read it somewhere. I can't remember the source, but I think it's very important, in terms of the way it lays it out in simplicity. When was the last thing you did something for the first time, right? What it's trying to tell you is there is always going to be a first time in your life when you'll do something, right? The question is, how frequently do you pick up something for the first time? That's when you start learning, and that's when you start growing. So as aspiring, cybersecurity professionals, as students, the way I look at it, you need to always be trying to learn new things. Don't say that I have learned enough, I know everything, because that's not how it goes, right? Especially in the field of cybersecurity. As you might have seen, the threat perception, the kind of threats that come around are ever evolving in the cybersecurity world, right? So what normally happens with that is you also need to be on your toes. You have to keep improving yourself, right? And that's why the learning bit, picking up something and trying to learn it again, or trying to learn something new, is very, very critical, right? Now, about me, of course, I am a father, a son, and a husband. I have 3 kids, 10, 7, and 5, and they're all boys, right? So the white hair that you see, I have, I have gotten that with all the the play and fun that we have at home with my boys, right?
I was gonna ask that.
You were going to ask that, Eve? So
Yes.
nothing. I will say
Last I
nothing
saw
phases
it.
me. Nothing phases me anymore. I have 3 boys at home. My wife says 4 boys. That's including me. Yeah. In terms of values, I believe integrity is key for an individual. Being transparent is very, very important, and being humble about things, right? And my interests are around cricket, golf, and I love to learn and grow. And I will tell you as we go along how the learning and the growing is still important for me. Okay. So as we move off who I am, let's think of ourselves as students who are currently in campus or who are recent graduates. You could be a science student, you could be an engineering student, and it all starts with what I call your mindset, right? Science is always about knowing, and that's how you should take it. When you get into something, you want to know the science of it. How does it work, right? Where does it come from, right? That's the science, that's the knowing bit. Then when you start executing, actioning, Doing, now that is what I call the engineering bit, right? So one thing is knowing the cybersecurity world, knowing the different threats, knowing the different vulnerabilities. That's one. That's the science behind it, right? And the engineering is what actions do you take once you know that science, right? So the mindset for every cybersecurity professional, and this particular picture can be, I would say, can be used in any different forum. It's not just a cybersecurity thing, but at the end of the day, since we are talking cybersec here, I will say let's look at it from a cybersecurity perspective. Again, most of the photos or the pics that you see, I found them in my different journeys across different journals that I read. They're all from different places or different pics that I found out, right? And I think, but it gives a very strong message, and I think that's an important bit to start off with, right? So knowing what your cybersecurity science talks about, knowing about what's behind each one of those areas that you're dealing with. And then the engineering bit is how you go about taking care of it, how you go about actioning it, how you go about doing it. All right. So that's your mindset that you should be in as students aspiring to get into cybersecurity, as folks who are recent graduates, and folks who are early starters in that career. Okay. Now, looking at that, let's try to see, let us reflect on what's your purpose, right? You need to find a purpose as an individual. I think that is critical. Okay. And I know my presentation might probably sound like we are bordering in, are we talking about cybersecurity? Are we talking about it? But I'm setting the stage. Let's put it that way. All right. So Aristotle said, where the need of the world and your talent intersect, right? That should be your vocation, or that should be your profession. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Okay. Now, based on this, so let's look at, let me give you an example of that diagram. Let's take a very simple example of, how shall I say? Okay, what are you good at? Let's say I, Pratik Roy, I'm good at fishing, right? I am very, very good at fishing. The next question that I would like to ask myself, so when I'm very good at, fishing, it could be my passion that drives my being that good, or it could be my profession, right? But do I love doing it? That's the next question to ask yourself. There are some times in life that you're good in something, but it's not something that you like doing, but you're just good in it because you're multi-talented, right? So the next question to ask is that something you love doing? So I'm good at fishing. Do I love fishing? Yes, I love fishing. The next thing is there a need for the fishing that I do in the world? Do people out there want me to go and fish, right? Maybe catch, a tilapia, catch whatever. Does the world need tilapia, for example, right? If that is fishing. Once you've been able to answer that, then the next question to answer is, if the world needs fishes, right? I am good at that job of fishing. I love fishing. I love going out to sea, right? And having a catch. Will somebody pay me for it? Important question, right? All of you are aspiring to become, professionals in cybersecurity. So the question is, will someone pay you for it? So someone will pay me for my fish? Yes, they will. Now, the moment I have an intersection of all these four elements, then I know that's my passion, and that's my purpose, and that's my mission, and that's my profession, right? So in a nutshell, I would say, if you as students are able to reflect on this, that itself tells you what your purpose or what you should do as professionals, right? Now, the reason I bring this up is you also need to know within cybersecurity, when we talk about different roles, you will notice that not only are there different roles, the question is, should you do all of them? Again, if I was you, I would put the role that I want to do into these 4 areas and try to answer those questions. So always refer back to these 4 areas as you are making that choice of what should I do going forward. All right. Does that kind of make sense? I will take that as a yes for now. All right. Of course, if it does not make sense, well, we have our discussions at a later stage. We can talk through it. Right. Now, in terms of jobs that are existing today, all right, when we look at cybersecurity, because that's where you guys are all aspiring to go to, there is no, shall I say, there is no, the jobs are more. So supply demand, from a supply demand perspective, there are many openings, there are less skilled people, right? Which itself puts you in a very good stage, right? What does that mean for you? That means there is always going to be an available job. Now, the question is, you just need to be in the right place at the right time to apply for it and have the right skills to be eligible for that job or that opening that is available, right? So cybersecurity, the beauty is there are lots of jobs, less number of skilled individuals. So there's always an availability of an opening for you to apply towards. The second thing, cybersecurity is a very, I would say, right? What do I mean by that? It's multi-industry, right? Cybersecurity professionals are required in every industry that we have today, whether it be tourism, whether it be hospitality, whether it be banking, whether it be telco and communication, whether it be education. In each and every field, you will always require cybersecurity professionals. So if you build your cybersecurity skills today, are you tied to only one industry that you can work in? I would say no. You can, but there might be specialization requirements on a particular industry. So for example, there could be requirements for PCI DSS, right? There could be some other banking requirement that you might have to do if you're working in the financial sector. But apart from that, the base of what you need to build your skills on is always available, right? The third thing I would say you need to look at is, one, what is the opportunity for cybersecurity today, right? So we determine from that perspective that the opportunity is there are more jobs than skilled people. Two, we have looked at it from a perspective of it can cut across any industry type where you can get a job. Yeah, you might have to tweak your skill set a bit depending on the industry, if there is any particular requirement, right? Otherwise, you're good to go with your base qualifications. The third thing to look at is, what's the future? Is it a flash in the, that it's only available today, 2 years down the line, that job role will go away, or 3 years down the line? Guess what? I don't think so. That's not going to happen. Cybersecurity is always going to keep evolving. And the reason it'll keep evolving is, as the threats evolve, your needs as skilled professionals will also evolve. As long as you keep yourself, upskilled and ready, you will always be in demand. So if you're in the cybersecurity space, I will say you're in a good space. Or if you're looking into getting into cybersecurity, you're definitely making the right choice. Not because I am in cybersecurity or this is a forum for cybersecurity, but just from the facts that I talked through, those three, the three different things that I talked about. There's a high level. Of course, there can be more. I mean, even you can tell me as we are talking, after in the Q&A, you can tell me I probably missed something. I'm willing to learn from that as well, right? But I would say on a high level, those three questions or those three, gap analysis that we did, or I talked about, should be able to tell us that, this is a field that is going to be, right? So if you're building your strengths around this, you definitely are not doing a wrong thing. Now, high level, what kind of job roles exist that you can hear people talk about? you'll hear people talk about, of course, they're not in any particular order here, right? There could be more job roles. I'm just giving some high level, a title of a job can be determined by how it's posted as well by the organization. But in terms of what you normally see people talk about, right, in the field, are you a pen tester? So if you want a job as a penetration tester, then you can go about building your skill and capacity around being a pen tester. If you want to be a forensic analyst, right, you can look at being an analyst for forensics, right? And there are courses that are available for that. I'm sure even in your undergrad or your postgrad classes, there could be those courses as well, right? They are roles like cybersecurity engineers. You will find this posted. So if you go and search today online, you will look around these kind of job roles that exist, and you will be able to say, hey, okay, for this job role, what do I need to build as skills? So these are just the top job roles that I see available. Of course, there could be others, right, which could be more niche areas, or they could fall under any of these broad 6 areas as well, right? So you have the CISO, who is, of course, the head of the information security branch in an organization. You have your security architects in an organization. You have your cybersecurity engineers. You've got your security analysts that you have. You've got pen testers. You've got forensic analysts. Now, when you are preparing yourself as a student, right, when you are looking at these job roles as a student who is currently in university, of course, your courses are, I don't know, again, I could be wrong, you could correct me. I don't think the course is how to become a CISO, right? Or how to become a security architect, right? There will be courses that are built towards it, right? That goes towards these kind of areas. Security, maybe network security. That's what you'll read about. You will read about AppSec, right? Your application security. You'll read about, mobile device management within your organization. You'll read about, when you're talking about education, right? In your courses, you will read about multi-factor authentication, right? You will read about things like how to infuse security into DevOps, right? Big area of people looking into it, right? How do you infuse that into your DevOps cycle as well? Drive security right from the word go, what we call today shift left, right? You start with security earlier so that your cost of changes or securing the system later when it's ready for launch does not take longer and does not cost you a lot more. So yes, you will read about all of that in your books, right? But what you as students have today, and I will refer back to my time 24 years ago, we did not have the availability of non-university courses at that point in time, right? We did not have industry certifications with us, or even if they were there, it was not widely shared, or we didn't have that information at a university level, right? I remember at our university, we were an IEEE students chapter, right? So that's the journals I used to get. That's the journals my classmates used to get, and that's what we used to go through. That was about it, or any other journal that we could lay our hands on. But you guys have a lot of different availabilities today. So what would I do if I was a student like you, or a budding cybersecurity enthusiast or professional? Over and above what I study in my university, which is my academic background or academic qualification requirements, I would start looking at, in terms of roles, in terms of areas in cybersecurity that I want to get deeper in, right? And this is when I would revert back to my purpose slide, right? Where I said, let us reflect. I would revert back to that and say, what would I love doing? Because you can't answer the question, am I good at it? Because you're probably starting off on that journey. So you might not know how good you will be. But the first things first with every job or every role is, do you love that, what you do? So I would say start off with that, right? As a question to answer. Do I love to fish in that case, right? Okay, so in this case, of course, would be, do I love maybe application security? That is my calling, right? I would like to do more in application security. Then you look at, is there an opportunity? Does the world need application security? I think that question, as far as we are concerned, we have answered already. Cybersecurity is definitely going to be in demand, right? Then the question is, will I get paid in the current market that I am? Yeah, or in the future market that it's going to be, right? Once you answer that, then you say, am I good? Of course, you're starting off, so you will not be as good as a thorough professional. Now, the question to answer that point is, how do I become good? Right? So if I want to become an application security person, I love doing that. I know there are lots of jobs around it. I know I'll get paid well as a professional. How do I get good at it? While I'm studying in university, or even if I've just graduated or I've just started working, then you start looking at, for AppSec, what do I need to do? What are the industry certifications that are available for AppSec, for example? What are the vendor certifications that are available, right? And build a timetable for yourself to say, hey, I will invest this time and I will do this certification within this particular time span in my life, right? And keep building that skill. I think that is very, very critical. So I know many people will say, hey, we have, when we are studying, we have so many things to do, and we have a lot of workload around us. We might not have enough time to take out of our day to invest in this as well. Now, just to answer that, let me talk about myself. Since the pandemic began in Kenya, and of course globally, and we went into our first lockdown, I think it was in March last year, March, April, probably time frame, right? And I decided to sit back and say, okay, so what else can I learn within this? At that point in time, my kids were also doing homeschooling. I was seeing them more often, and everybody together in the house doing homeschooling as well as work from home was definitely getting to be, cumbersome, right? But what happened was my kids came in, I was always asking them about, so how did your test go? How did this go? How did that go? And my eldest told me, so you keep asking us, what about you? Let's have a competition. We will do our tests. Let us see you also do your exams or tests. So I said, okay, great. So I took up that challenge and I decided to sit for, certification courses as well, right? I don't need to tell you how young I am. Now you must have heard already. 24 years ago, I graduated as a bachelor's degree holder. That should tell you how young I am, right? So even after graduation, I was, doing my certifications. Then I took, of course, as you're working, you do skill up, but I was not doing certification exams. So a year ago, I said, okay, I take the challenge. And within this last 1 year, just to tell you guys, I did 6 certification exams. All right. Out of which 2 of them were industry certifications, one from, ISACA and one for EC Council. So I did my CCSO and my CDPSE, right? And I did 4 vendor certifications. Okay. I'm not saying this to say, hey, look how great it is. But the reason I say it is, one, of course, I was challenged by my kids. So I had to, show it to them that, yes, even dad can, study and certify at the same pace as them. Of course, I lost the race. They had, they were counting all 3 of them cumulative. So of course, I could not beat the number of test scores they had. But what it told me is, what? If I invest time, I can still find that 1 hour, 2 hour a day to be able to do it. So how did I take my time out? I mean, this is just to tell you how you can do as well. So every morning I blocked out Monday to Friday. Saturday, Sunday, I would not do it, right? 7 to 9, before I got into my work schedule, I would study 2 hours a day. Yeah. Which I still do. Whether I'm doing a certification exam or I am not preparing for it, I still study, because the way I see our jobs as cybersecurity professionals is you always need to be a step ahead, right? You always need to be one step closer to getting that knowledge, knowing something, right? The science behind it, and then executing. So, of course, you have to know about the science, right? So, I always invest my time 2 hours a day, 7 to 9. That's what I do, right? So, even you can do it. Now, not only did I do my 6 certifications exams, I also relocated in between the pandemic, all right? I moved because of my job. I left Kenya. I moved to Redmond, right? But all of this happening, I still did not lose focus on what I had to do in terms of upskilling myself. So the reason I'm saying this is, even with your, your tough schedule that you have today, right, with your university, your work, and so on and so forth, you need to give time to learning. Learning never stops. You need, especially in our field, in cybersecurity, right? If you want to be the protector, remember, the threat actors need to have one success, but you have to stop all 100 threats, right? So who has to work harder? You have to work harder if you want to defend against it, right? You have to always keep yourself ahead of the race. Okay. So I would say those are the different high level job areas that you should look at, right? Based on this, look for what industry certifications are there. So there are industry players like ISC2, there is ISACA, there is EC Council. I'm just naming a few of them. Okay. Of course, there are others, right? There is then there is the vendor certifications available from Microsoft, AWS, from Google, from Palo Alto, from Cisco. So many people have their vendor certifications for security as well. So like I said, choose the area of cybersecurity you want to get into. Base it on what you love doing. Is there somebody in the world that needs that? Is there a job role? Is there a monetary compensation you will get as a employed professional? And where you don't have the skills, how can you look at building that skill? All right. I think that's how you need to look at your, your life going forward as cybersecurity professionals. So with that, I will say, let's move on to the next slide, and then we will have a discussion around Q&A. Right. Like I said, I'm not going to be very long in my talk today, because it's quite late for you guys as well. So I do understand that. So let's move to the next slide. I don't know how many of you have heard this story, right? Have you heard the story about the clever crow, where a crow was flying, and very, very thirsty. It was a very hot, sunny day. It was flying around, and then as it was flying over a village, it found this jug with water inside, right? And when it came down to drink that water, it realized that, hey, this water is quite deep. I am not able to reach it. But it was a clever crow, right? And that clever crow decided to pick up pebbles and drop it into the jug. So, of course, as we all know, as you keep dropping the pebbles, the water level keeps coming up. And it did that for a couple of minutes or hours, whatever it was, depending on how deep the jug was and where the water was. And then finally, the water came up and the crow drank it. Of course, that crow was from 1970s or even earlier. But it was still clever for that time in terms of what it did. But we need to think like the modern crow, right? Instead of trying to drop pebbles, I'm sure we can find a straw, all right? If we do find a straw, we drink with it. All I would ask you to do is just make sure that it's a bamboo straw. We don't use plastic, yeah, so that we try and go eco. we go green. We try to do our bit when it comes to saving the world. So that's all I would tell the modern crow to do, right? What am I trying to say with this picture? Keep upgrading your skills. Yes, that does not mean that if 20 years ago, what Pratik Roy was not clever for that time. Yes, Pratik Roy was clever for 20 years ago. But is Pratik Roy good enough for 2021? That's the question I ask myself every day. And if I find that the answer is not clear to me, I cannot buy what I am saying to myself, then I need to upgrade myself. Then I need to skill up. And that's what I think you should do. A lot of self-reflection, a lot of, am I doing my best today? Can I do better, right? If I want to be the best in my field, what else can I do, right? If I want to say I am one among the few in the country who are able to do X, Y, Z and do it very, very well, what do I need to do to get there? So be the modern crow, use a straw, just make sure it's bamboo. With that, I will say a big, big thank you. And as you can see, the crow is flying off, right? And I will open it up to questions. Eve, Nancy?
Yes, I think there's one question here, like how can we get that kind of motivation and like self-confidence? That's from Neha Vasisht. Yes. And thank you so much, Pratik, for this particular session. Personally, I've learned a lot, taken my notes, and we can go to that one question that we have. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I think the question was around how do you keep yourself motivated or build confidence? Sorry, I just missed. Are there two different areas, or just how do you keep yourself motivated?
It's one question, but you can divide it into two in terms of how can you get the kind of motivation that you have, and how do you also build self-confidence?
Okay, all right. So let's try and break it down into two. Okay, so Neha, what I do for myself, right? Every year, 31st of December, I sit down and look at how I started in January that year and where I am ending, right? I don't lay out very grand plans, okay? And the reason for that is the more complex the plan, the harder it is to deliver, right? And building self-confidence is also about being able to do things, right? If you lay out a plan that this year I am going to learn how to fly a rocket ship, guess what? It's something that's not going to happen, right? It's not realistic. One, there is a pandemic, so you might not be able to fly to a place where a rocket ship takes off, right? And two, you might not be able to build the skills to be able to fly the rocket ship. Does it mean that you should not aspire to be a rocket ship pilot? Of course you should, but that could be your long-term strategy, right? So what do you do to break up to that long-term strategy? So set goals for yourself on a yearly basis that you can deliver on as a person, okay? And as you deliver it, what does it do for you? When you check off that box to say, hey, I said I will do these 5 things, I will probably say, for example, I will get certified as, say, a CISSP, right? And then at the end of the year, you say, you know what? I completed my CISSP certification. Fantastic. Yeah. Then you put another comment to say, hey, I am going to buy my first car. Were you able to buy a car? Yes, you were. You know what? Check that box off. What does it do? It builds confidence in you as a person who is able to do what they set out to do. So it's very, very critical. Keep it simple, keep it, tangible that you can deliver on. Don't make it highly complex, right? Now, as you go around, so it works in two ways, right? Once it builds confidence for yourself, but two, it also motivates you to take up a bigger challenge for the next year. All right. I mean, I get motivated by the fact that, hey, if I could run for, let's say, 1 kilometer, all right, maybe after a year or after a month, I should try and do 2 kilometers. And guess, you know why? Because I know I could do 1. So of course I can try and do 2. So build small and keep building on top of that. That's how I would say, you should look at building that confidence and the motivation bit. And always, have some focus time for yourself. Don't do it. If you put up a plan to say, I want to achieve this, then what are the steps to achieve it? Make sure you note them down. Make sure you are able to have those activities checked off on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis to say, hey, how am I tracking? Don't do this that in January you set the goal and then the next thing you're revisiting your goal is in December. You need to be more self-critical than anybody else, because nobody else knows what your plan is. It's you, right? And who are you, trying to cheat if you don't do it? It's yourself. So make sure that you look at your plan at the start of January, and every 2 months or every 3 months, just see, okay, so I said I'll do this. How far am I in this progress? Okay, does that make sense? All right.
I think we still have a number. Sorry,
Neha, is that okay with you?
Yeah.
All right, I see. Thank you from her, so I guess it's fine.
Yes, thank you so much.
Right, so what else do we have?
Okay, so we still have this one for how's cybersecurity department structured in Microsoft. I think someone is interested in joining you, and personally I am.
I come from on the product side, so I will not talk about how it's structured, how it is done, but like every organization, right, we have our own structures around how the CISO team sees cybersecurity, because ideally is the CISO org that drives the cybersecurity umbrella within a company, right? And they are the ones who lay down the together with the business decision makers, how the policies, what kind of policies to implement. So generally speaking, that's how that would go, right? So I would keep it at that to say, hey, the CISO organization drives the cybersecurity the structure in terms of how Microsoft works around it internally. Let's keep it there. Yeah. We have another question for the new pies. Am I reading that right? Sorry, like I said, I'm 24 years past your time in terms of university, so I don't understand what new pies is.
I think it's still new students or newbies mostly, as you start off.
Okay, newbies.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, got it. So what are all the requirements to do cybersecurity? Okay, so this is a very, very, very wide question. And the reason I say that is, cybersecurity is a very wide domain, right? You could choose to be someone who wants to go and write secure code. Yeah. You could choose to be someone who wants to architect from a network perspective. You could choose to be someone who, wants to only work around, multi-factor authentication or credentials, identity for that matter, right? I would say as a newbie, you need to look at cybersecurity, start reading about it. What are the different areas within the cybersecurity world? And then choose what excites you, right? And then see what are the subsequent steps to become a professional in that area, right? And then I would say you take it from there. The next question is from Kelvin. It's around what's your informed opinion on vendor neutral versus vendor certifications? Okay, so like I told you earlier, in the last 1 year, I did 2 industry certifications, right? And I did 4 vendor certifications. Okay, that's among my 6. I would say you should always do the industry certifications, which I would categorize as vendor neutral, which you have there, because it's important to have that industry piece behind you, right? And the reason I say that is, one, it also allows you from a peer-to-peer touch point with others in the industry who may have similar certifications, right? And secondly, I think having that side of vendor neutrality is always important. Okay. Now, then we come to the vendor certifications. This could primarily be driven by, one, the organization you're working in today. So if you're working in company A and a company A is dependent on a particular vendor, yes, you need to get certified on that vendor's product, right? But if you are still starting off and you're early in your career, you have not yet gotten that first job, I would say look at the market to see, hey, what are the customers? Go back to the purpose slide. Remember? Think about it. So is there an opportunity for me to become certified on a particular vendor today, right? And if I get certified on that particular vendor, is there an opportunity for me to work? Right? So that's an important bit to look at, right? So I would say, yes, do both. Vendor neutral certifications, so the industry certifications that I talked about, as well as do the vendor certifications, right? All right. What major challenges did you encounter and how did you overcome them? Okay. I think the first challenge I encountered when I started my career, I didn't start off in cybersecurity, of course, right? My first job, many years ago, was in sales. I sold my first 2 computers on a phone to a law firm, right? Those days, the computers could be sold for quite a lot of money. That was my first kind of role. After 7 to 8 months, I realized, you know what, I don't want to do sales. I want to go into technical stuff. Then I started as working a technical space in an organization. So of course, when I started at the bottom of the tech team. My first job was to do deliveries. So I have done deliveries of computers. I've done deliveries of boxes. I've carried them from parking. I have done networking. I've pulled cables in lifts, lift shafts. My kids tell me not lifts; they're called elevators, right? But that's just a joke. So in lift shafts, back home is still a lift shaft, right? So I've pulled cables through there, and that's where I started, and that's where I grew from there. So I would not call it a challenge in my life. I would call it as a motivation in my life. That's where I started, and even when I was pulling cables or delivering boxes, I never forgot what my focus was. And my focus was, in that 1 year, I wanted to get certified. So I started off with my MCAC certification as I was doing that. As just to share with you guys, the certification at that point in time was quite expensive. And of course, salary is not that great, right? I could only afford to sit for one exam every 3 months, right? Or 4 months, depending on what I had. What I would do is I would make sure I save the money for my exam. And then for the next 3 to 4 months, I would not go out anywhere with my friends because it costs money to go out and spend, right? And I would make sure I use that money for my exam. Once I passed the exam, yes, you know what? One weekend I would go out and celebrate with my friends because of passing the exam. And that's how I did my first set of certifications, my MCSE, right? So I would, like I said, I would not call it a challenge. I would call it a major motivation for myself, that even with all this that was around me, I still had to get over it and do things, right? So don't look at it as challenges. Look at it as more as a motivating factor to drive you to do better and get better. Yeah. Vincent says he recently got started in cybersecurity, and I like every bit of skill and knowledge I'm getting. Concern, or rather question, is with the advancement of AI, are there cyber secures that may be future get dimmed by AI. Talk, for instance, pen testing now and all that. It has been automated. Okay, now with the advent of AI and ML, this is always a question that keeps coming up, right? What I think AI and ML does is it gives us an opportunity to do things faster, right? So say, for example, you have a SIM that you're using in your organization, which receives telemetry from across the board, right? If you as a SOC analyst were to go through 3 million telemetry, points that has been thrown at you in your SIM, right? Would you be able to go through all 3 million in a day and highlight what's important and what's not? I would say no, right? Now, if you add or if you infuse AI and machine learning into it, are able to sift through the 3 million, drop out all the false positives, and only surface 5, 10, or 15 incidents that are important for you, Vincent, as a SOC analyst, to then go and investigate further and hunt if required, right? Now, does it mean that Vincent, the SOC analyst, has become replaceable? I think no. I think Vincent, the analyst, has become more skilled and is able to do much more than what he was able to do before. Does that kind of answer the question, Vincent?
Yes, I appreciate. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any more questions that are out here? I don't see any more. Okay, Kelvin, being a bit futuristic. Keeping it in mind, professional certificates are still ongoing. Okay, I would say if you want to be a CISO, you should pursue, whether it's your MSc in InfoSec or a management degree, yes, you should do it. If you can do a hybrid, better still. Because don't forget, a CISO is in the management layer. A CISO's job is to make sure that the business outcomes that the business decision makers want to drive are enabled through security, right? So having a strong foundation in terms of business knowledge is always helpful. So yes, if you can do a hybrid master's where you can do both, I would say go for it. And I wish you the very best, Kelvin. We still have 2 more minutes. I had told you I will try to let you guys go early, but looks like we have some good questions coming in. So if you need 5 extra minutes, I don't mind spending that. I am available, or if you guys want to go and have your dinner early, that's also good with me.
So help me understand what are some of the best certification I would get if I wish to enroll for a cybersecurity analyst career.
You're asking me to make a choice of certification, which I will not do. And the reason for that is you need to go around and do a bit of... Yeah, sorry?
Okay, I'm not actually asking for some choices. I'm just asking for like a heads up, some of the certifications that I should do.
Okay. So like I said, there are certifications that are out there from industry vendors, right? So if you want to get into audit, you can look for some ISACA courses that are there for security audit. If you want to look at ISC too, they have courses around, they call it CCSP, if I'm not wrong, that's cloud security professionals, because cloud is is the way to go. They have CISSP, which is also a certified InfoSec professionals course, very, very much in demand. If you look at EC Council, they also have their own courses around CEH. I don't know if you've heard of CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker. They have courses around forensics as well. Then there is the SAN org as well, where you can, I think the GSEC and the GISC, if I'm not wrong, is also there available. So yeah, there are lots of courses that are out there that you can look at, right? But before you get into the courses, I think you need to find out where exactly in the security space you want to play in, right? So that would be your first starting point. Once you look at that security space that you want to play in, right, then you look at, okay, to be the best in this particular space, what are the different industry certifications and the different vendor certifications that you need to do as an individual. And that's when I would say, pinpoint what you want to do. Don't just start off with everything. But if you're just starting your career, you want to just get into the fundamentals of it, look for some fundamental security courses and then start off with that, just to get your feet wet, as they call it, right? Does that help, Vincent?
Yeah, it surely does. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just smack on top of the hour. Nancy, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. The session has been so enlightening. So I think I have a question myself. Assuming you want to get started with cloud security, since that's something I would love to actually focus on, what are some of maybe the advice, the insights that you would give someone who wants to get started in cloud security?
So, cloud security, because you've got multiple vendors in that space, right? You may want to look at the organization you work for. What cloud provider are they invested in, right? In some cases, they could be invested in more than one cloud provider, right? Then you look at, if that is how the customer is invested that you work in, you build your skills around that vendor certifications, right? But over and above the vendor certification, also look at industry certification, like I told you earlier, that are cloud focused from a security standpoint, right? I would say these should be your first two areas of looking into it. Like in the cloud world, what we look at is from a, we look at cloud security posture management, we call it CSPM, right? What is your current status quo of the cloud? How secure are you in that environment? Based on that CSPM or that status of your cloud, we then look at recommendations and apply those recommendations to harden your particular your cloud area, right, or your cloud tenant for that matter. So that will now go into your, how shall I say, your vendor side of the story. So if you're using cloud A, you will do the security hardening based on that cloud A, right? Or if they say use a third party, you will use a third party. But then that is how you will start off, right? So if I was you, I would look at, in your organization, what's the cloud provider that you're invested in? Start off with that as a vendor certification.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that guidance. I don't know if we have any other question. But the session has been so insightful. Thank you once again for having the time to take us through this session today. I think I don't think there are any other questions. So thank you so much for making time. Thank you also everyone for making time to maybe attend this session. You have stayed throughout the session. We thank you for that. I've noted Laura has joined us. So maybe Laura, maybe you can say something and then, yes.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I joined in a bit later, but it's been an amazing session. Pratik, it was so great to see you again. It's been a long time, and I hope you come back to Kenya and visit us soon. We definitely miss you. Yeah, we miss your stories and just talking with you at Microsoft. So thank you for your support and thank you for speaking today. And also, you're one of the people who you've talked about certifications for everybody listening today. If you follow Pratik, on LinkedIn, you will see that during the pandemic, he was doing so many certifications. Like he was motivated by his sons. And I think we all need that motivation. Just keep learning new things, keep pursuing just keep learning new things and keep expanding or broadening your knowledge. So yeah, thank you so much, Pratik, and thank you for all the campus leads and the students who've joined us today. And I hope we'll see you again next week. Nancy?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you once again, Pratik. We're hoping to have you once again for another amazing session.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
look forward to it. I look forward to it. And I am honored that I am a part of the SheHacks team for quite a few years. And I'm happy that we were able to deliver this for all the upcoming, cybersecurity professionals. So I really, really appreciate you guys spending the time and having me here.
Thank
Asante
you.
ni sana.
Thank you. Thank you so much as well. So thank you everyone for joining us. It's been an amazing session. And actually, Pratik, we've had quite a number of the students from the campus team, and I'm very sure they have maximally benefited from this session because, well, the campus team is quite extensive. We have quite a number of ambassadors countrywide. So thank you so much for the support and for making time. And thank you also everyone else for joining us. I think we can come to the end of the session. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Good day, Pratik, and good night, everyone else.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.